Well, hello BookTube, it's Ros, and I'm on a bit of a mission at the moment to catch up with tags because I've been suffering from tag guilt, you know. So I'm doing more tags than you probably really want to watch, but hey, it's helping me kind of relieve my stress, so it's going to happen anyway. And I'm going to really cheat today because I'm going to do kind of two tags, well, a pseudo tag and a tag tag. And the pseudo tag is started with a video by Bethan Bruninga-Sokola, and she did a tag about how to pronounce her name because people always ask her. And then somebody took it. Who took it? Oh, Jeremy Feed took it and weaponized it, as Steve Donahue would say, to turn it into a tag. And I was tagged by Alan of Pick Up Books and Classics. So here we go on the pseudo tag. And how do you pronounce? Well, you know how to pronounce my name, but Alan tagged me because he knows that Ros is not my real name. No, it is my real name, but my real name is Rosamund. And why do I never use it? Well, I do use it, but not in this sort of situation, because I know that if I say Rosamund, people will always turn it into Rosalind or Rosamund or Rosemary or who knows what. And so it's just so much easier to be Ros. And I also, in answer to a common question, I genuinely don't mind whether you spell it R-O-S or R-O-Z, because it's not my name anyway. My real name is Rosamund. Now, how did I end up with the name Rosamund? I'm very fond of my name, and I'll tell you why. When my mother was pregnant, she had in mind to call me Barbara June, and I don't think that would have suited. Barbara was the name of one of my aunts, and that would have been lovely, but actually, no. And fortunately, when I was born, she looked at me and she said, "This baby is no Barbara. This baby is some sort of rosy posy thing." So she had to think of a rosy sort of name, and she came up with Rosamund because she could play the piano. I'd say she was a pianist, but that sounds too grand. She could play the piano, and she used to love playing a piece by Schubert called Rosamund. It's the entr'acte, I think, from music he did for a ballet. I don't know. It's lovely. I'll link to someone playing it on the show notes. And also she was a very keen gardener, and she liked to grow the Rosamundi rose, which is a rose that it's got a lovely fragrance, and it's pink and white candy stripes, and I have one growing in my garden. If it was the right time of year, I'd show you a picture of it. Maybe I'll find one to attach. I don't know, but so of course that was a nice thing to get named after a piece of music and a rose. So no wonder I like my name. But the other reason that I'm very fond of my name is because I had to fight to keep it. What's she talking about, do you think? Well, I'm the youngest of 7 children, and I had quite a bossy big sister. I've got two big sisters, but one of them's particularly always thinks she, or certainly was used to think she knew best. And she was quite a bit older than me. And at the point when I was about to start school, she was just planning to go off on teacher training college. And she decided in her wisdom and convinced my parents, heaven knows how, that's the trouble with being 7th child, you know, that Rosamund was far too difficult to name for me to learn to write at school. So as my second name was Patricia, when I started school, I should be called Pat. So poor little 5-year-old Ros goes off to school and finds that she's suddenly called Pat. Nightmare. It took me about 3 years and a change of school to get my own name back. Now, who am I going to tag for this sort of pseudo tag? I'm going to tag 2 people that I think their BookTube name is probably not their whole name, or might not be. Tom of LA Books. I don't believe that you're just Tom. What's the Italian full version of your name, your first name, Tom? Tell me. And Freddie, the Sluggish reader. Now, maybe Freddie is Freddie's real full name. I don't know. It sounds like an abbreviation. And I also know that in Thailand, it's quite common to have like a name and a nickname, and I don't know if that's also true in Malaysia. So like my niece-in-law, you know, my nephew's wife, her real name is Sushada, but no one uses that. Everyone calls her Honey and always has. So is that true in Malaysia too? I don't know. Anyway, that's who I'm tagging. So on to the proper tag, that I'm doing right now, and that is the BookTube Island Castaway tag. And this is the first tag created by AJ Dunn of AJ Dunn Reads and Writes, and it's their first original tag, so it's really lovely to get to do it. And I was tagged by Kit of Kit's World, who's just lovely, so I'm very honoured. But I did have slight worries about doing this tag, because it's one of those tags where you have to name other booktubers, and there's two problems with that. Problem number one is that for everyone you name, you could have named like 10 others that you also love dearly, so you feel like, oh, I'm gonna upset someone that I haven't mentioned, and they'll think that they're not so important to me, and the other thing is that it could seem a bit cliquey, with the same people naming each other, but hey, I'm not going to miss out on AJ's first tag, so I shall go for it. Now, they start by giving us a really nice premise for the tag. The premise is: you were shipwrecked in YouTube Ocean and washed up on the shores of BookTube Island. You must trek across the island in search of rescue. Along the way, you encounter other BookTubers. Explain why you have chosen them. Prompt number one. You come upon a hut whose inhabitant decides to be your guide. Which booktuber do you trust to guide you across the island? Well, I thought the person I've got to come across has got to be somebody who lives on an island. So I was thinking, which booktubers do I know that live on islands? And I thought of two, both of which I think would be excellent guides. One is Alba of Seriella, who lives on Puerto Rico, and one is Jay Shea, who I think lives on Vancouver Island. So, I will hope to run into one or the other of them, because they're both people that seem like they know what they're doing, and would be helpful to a Ros in distress, a shipwrecked Ros in distress. You set off in search of food and come across a booktuber who can feed you. Who is it? Now, my first thought for this was Freddie, the Sluggish reader, because I've seen him cook whilst talking about books on occasion. You haven't done that for ages, Freddie. You could do that again. Then I thought, well, it has to be Courtney Ferreter. Why, you ask? Because Courtney always describes herself as BookTube's Jewish mother, and what are Jewish mothers known for? Who knows if Courtney likes to feed people? I don't know, but this is a cliche. But then I thought, that's no good if we haven't actually found any food to eat. So I'm actually going to, I think, hope to find Heidi of My Reading Life, because with Springathon, she keeps reading books about things like fungi and trees and so on. So I feel she might help us identify edible things. And then Bethan Brininger Sokola, I'm probably pronouncing that wrong after having watched her how to pronounce her name tag. I've probably got the wrong one in my head. But she's a biologist, and I think she studies bees. So I'm hoping she might find some honey, which will make anything else a bit more palatable when Courtney or Freddie cook it for us, if we're lucky. So, you and your guide somehow get lost, and you're thirsty. Yes. Which booktuber could lead you to water? Well, now, Brian of Bookish has an affinity with water because he's a keen fisherman, but I'm not sure he could find water. I'm going to say Robin of the Quiet Midden, because she lives in the deep woods of the Yukon. She's a bit of a naturalist, and I think maybe she might sort of identify the tracks of some water-loving animal that we could follow to find a source of fresh water. That's my hope. Oh, next problem. Yikes! You fall into a hidden pit. That was very foolish of me, but quite likely, as I'm fairly clumsy, as you know. Which booktuber would you look to get you out? Now, my first thought was Sean the Bookmaniac, for two reasons. Sean is someone that I feel has my back on BookTube, I feel like I could rely on him to want to get me out of a pit. And the other thing that I know Sean does is read far too many books at one time, DNFing a load of them as a result. No, but he up to 30 things he could be reading. So with any luck, he's carrying around a pile of those on this island, or has them with him, so he could drop them down into the pit, and I could stack them up and use that to climb out. Except that then his books would be stuck down the pit instead, and that is not a good idea. He might never forgive me. So instead, I'm going to call upon Daniel of Guilty Feet and ask him to swing round on his magic ladder, drop it down into the pit. I will climb up, and then the pair of us can heave it back out again, and then he can hang it back on his bookcase, and all will be well. So that's the pit sorted. Oh, the salty air is destroying your clothes. Which booktuber would you let clothe you? There is only one answer to this question, and that is Too Tight to Trek. Too Tight has the best wardrobe on YouTube, BookTube, without a doubt. And I think Too Tight would clothe me far more glamorously than I ever managed myself, and might even clothe me in beautiful poetry as well. Yes, fingers crossed, bit of Shakespeare. Thank you, Too Tight. If you don't watch Too Tight's videos about Shakespeare's sonnets, you are missing out. I'll link to them below. Ooh, even castaways need distractions. Which booktuber do you find who gives you the entertainment you need? Well, I'm going to go to a big island now, and I'm going to turn to Scott and Nell of Gunpowder Fiction and Plot, because they always make me smile one way or another. And while I'm there, I might manage to track down Bob of the font, who seems to have gone AWOL at the moment, or not making any videos. Come back, Bob, we want you. If it another possible islandy booktuber resident who I think I could rely on to be highly entertaining would be Jason. And again, he's one you have to hunt down a bit, Jason Harrigan, because he keeps changing his channel name and starting it and stopping it. But currently it's Black Sheep Books, and there's something about the way Jason talks about things that's just endlessly entertaining. So one of them, surely, one of those four. Oh, shucks, you've been hurt. You need a booktuber to heal you. Who is it? Well, the obvious answer is Tilly of Tilly's Shelf. Firstly, because she's my daughter, so, good in times of trouble, but also because, that's what she does. She'd bandage me up nicely and, put a good dressing on it and tell me what to do. But just say she wasn't available, I think I might turn to Kim of Middle of the Book March, because she could just heal me by reading me excerpts from George Eliot, which she does so beautifully. I feel like my soul would be healed and I could stop worrying about the bumps and bruises. Yeah, that would have me sorted, I think. Now, it's raining. Which booktuber do you meet who could build you a solid shelter? I'm going to turn to Alan of Big Hard Books and Classics, because I feel he's a very resourceful person and is good at making the most of small spaces and difficult conditions. So Alan, build a shelter with me. Although there is a booktuber I always feel something about her suggests she'd be a good woman in a crisis, and that's Britta Bola. There's just something about Britta that says to me, yes, whatever happened, she'd have a sensible solution. Not sure why, and no idea about her shelter building skills. Now, you come across a booktuber who challenges your perceptions. Well, that's a surprising thing on an island, isn't it? Who is it? The booktuber who's been challenging my perceptions longest, I think, is Mark Nash. He's someone who always gets me to think of reading things that I might not otherwise have found, and when I do, they're real successes usually. But there's a new booktuber who definitely challenges my perception with his creativity and his ideas, and that is Pay, of Pay Attention, and Pay Vio. He's another one who should do the how do I pronounce my name tag, I think. And at the moment, he's doing some videos about kind of literary criticism, and yeah, definitely challenging my perception of that. Well, now, you find the source of all knowledge on BookTube Island. Well, where else would it be other than on BookTube Island? Which booktuber holds that knowledge? Now, I was so touched and flattered when Kit tagged me in this, because he for this prompt, he said that there was like a sort of a trio of who would be the council of how did he describe it? BookTube, the council of bookishness for BookTube, and it was me and Sean and Kim, Sean the Bookmaniac and Kim of Middle of the Book March, and I'm loving that. But I would turn to Hannah of Hannah's Books, because she is actually I think, the wisest person, the wisest woman on BookTube, don't you? Would you agree? I think she is. Everything she says, you think she's really thought about that first, not like me. It just all comes out, bursting forth. Whereas Hannah has thought it through. So definitely a source of all knowledge. But my backup plan would be to turn to Jen the librarian, because librarians have special powers, don't they, for knowledge. Now, finally, we get to rescue. You finally have a chance to be rescued. Which booktuber do you trust to save you? Now, Kit had a really good answer for this, because he said that actually the person he would trust to save himself was himself, which is sensible. And I might just ask him to sort of rescue me on his coattails, as it were. But, he might not want that responsibility. So I'm going to turn to Tom of Tom LA Books, because Tom has been my guide, my Virgil, leading me through Dante's Inferno. And if you can get me through Inferno in one piece, then surely he could rescue me from BookTube Island. There we go. I'm saved. Who do I tag? Well, obviously I tag all the booktubers that I've mentioned in the course of this tag. And happy day, everybody.